Prior to our meeting, we will have a CDBG hearing. So the CDBG hearing is called to order. I'll allow Eileen to begin.
Good evening. Tonight we meet to discuss, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So tonight we're holding this hearing to invite the public to have input on the selection of projects that council can apply for within the eligible low to moderate income areas within the borough. The application is due January 6th, and I don't know if there are any members of the public. Charles, can you tell if there are?
There are, Eileen. So when it's time to ask for people from the public, let me know. We'll ask them to raise their hands, and we will recognize them in due time.
Okay, great. So we did have a project from last year that was not funded. So it's on Cedar Avenue, and it's between Cypress between Longacre and Bailey. And that sanitary sewer is in very poor condition. And so it's within that, the northeast quadrant of the borough that is within the eligible area. So we were going to suggest that that would be a project to ask for funding. And then we do have another project that developed this year, and that would be the 400 block of Holly. And it's a 3 manhole project. So the first from manhole 1 to manhole 2, which would be the northmost manhole down to the next manhole, we're not sure that that can wait until the CDBG decisions would be made, and then those projects would not even be able to start until the fall at the earliest. So what we're suggesting is that we do the first to the second manhole using borough funds, and then apply for the grant from the second manhole to the south manhole at the end of that block. So there are 2 projects. You are allowed to put 2 projects. You're allowed to submit for 2, and the county, you select a priority and an alternate, and then the county, if they choose to award, they decide whether or not they're going to award the priority or the alternate. So at this time, anyone from the public who's interested in presenting a project or endorsing a project that has been stated, this would be the appropriate time to speak. And we will need your name and your address.
If you wish to participate, please raise your hand in the chat section so we can see you. Eileen, also, I think it's important that members of council know that they can comment, as well as the mayor.
I have a question. If we're not still waiting on someone from the public first.
Madam President, we have no one waiting from the public at this time.
Thank you. Councilor Cave, you have the floor.
Yes. Hi, Eileen. Can you clarify? And I think I might literally ask you this question every single year. But so if we request 2, is there a chance that they'll approve both, or they only approve 1?
There's always that chance that they could approve both. The Cypress is a pretty expensive one. That's the last year's estimate was $328,000, and that was with $100,000 being contributed by the borough. So that's a really expensive project. I don't know that they would consider 2 if they considered that one. The 400 block of Holly, I'm trying to remember what the estimate per half a block was. I think it's somewhere around 200. I still think that might be high enough that they would only approve 1.
Thank you.
I mean, they have about $2 million, and they split that between 46 communities. That, well, not every community is eligible, but probably, I'm going to guess probably 38 communities are splitting the $2 million. And that covers the nonprofits as well. So I guess if no one else has any questions or comments or projects, then you can close the hearing.
All right, thank you. The hearing is now closed, and we will call to order our legislative meeting. It's
Madam President,
7:08.
we can't do that till 7:30.
I'm sorry?
We cannot do that till 7:30.
Okay.
So we'll be in a recess until that time.
Okay. Okay, clearing the streets.
Yeah, sure. So everything went good. The only thing, this was a hard storm to kind of predict. All the weather stations had low confidence in reading the Philadelphia region. So last night we ended around 11 o'clock. All the streets were cleared. I dismissed everybody for the night. All the roads were salted. Just because we thought the temperatures were going to rise to about like 39, 38 degrees and all the sleet would turn to rain. But of course, you know how things go. It wasn't the case. So we ended up accumulating roughly like another inch to inch and a half of sleet on the roadway. So this morning we came back in at 5, scraped everything off and salted everything. And then we started hitting all the Borough plots and got everything cleared. The only thing, moving forward, we'll have to look out for is refreezing each night. So we'll be doing ice checks. And then on the weekend, I'll just touch base with one of the patrolmen to see how the town is, and need be, we'll kind of act on it.
Thank you. I guess, Chief, has everyone been behaving and driving carefully?
Accidents were a little crazy at the beginning of the tour when the snow started. For whatever reason, I'm not sure if Jeff has an answer to this, what happened with the lights at Church and Bailey went on flash for some reason. Higgins came in and fixed it up. But the initial storm, there were a few fender benders, nothing major, but a few here and there throughout the borough.
Yeah, so with the lights that that was like a little bit prior to when the storm actually started. I think it was just a short that we couldn't, kind of track and find. So we had Higgins come in and they got it under control for us.
Did we have any issues with any downed trees throughout the borough?
So no down trees. I believe we only had one down wire that Miss Rowcloud told Mike about this morning.
How was traffic at Borough Hall today? I know that we had a delayed opening.
I mean, for all in all, most of the day it was fine, to be honest with you. There was no issues at Borough Hall to my knowledge while I was there during the day, so it was relatively quiet.
Mr. Nichols, do you have any updates?
Good evening, Madam President, Mayor, and Council. Just a few to kill some time. I can always give you guys a few updates. We were talking about the possibility. I know Council Rowcloud had asked about the possibility of the borough introducing a business privilege tax after those proposals that I had asked for came in. The proposals, for the most part, just gave information around us instituting what we already do as it relates to fees for licenses and things of that nature for businesses, because of an act on the state level that went into place in 1989. Unfortunately, if the borough didn't have a business privilege tax prior to that, no municipality at this point who didn't have one before 1989, they can't have one at this point unless the legislator changes the law. So unfortunately, we won't be able to enact a business privilege tax. That's one update. Another update, we brought ProChamps in about a year ago, and they do the land banking for the foreclosed properties and the vacant lots in the borough. And I wanted to report this year, it's been a year, they brought in an additional $26,434 with registering those properties, which of course on the public works and code side reduce expenditures because the borough doesn't have to send those letters, go out and abate the properties or anything like that. So I probably will have ProChamps come and do a presentation in January to talk about other things that they could potentially do to enhance the code department as it relates to vacant properties and just code issues, because they have a whole other component of the business that could potentially generate additional revenue. I know we're talking about ways in which we can generate additional revenues, and also we can use additional helps to do things around code. So that's another update. We had a conference call today with a potential who actually solicited us, a developer that would like to do some project at the old Yeadon Swim Club, single family homes. They say they have, financing and everything in place, but we'll see. I told them that they needed to get some information over to Mr. Gibbs for him to review, and of course something for council to review. But it was a cold call. They called in. I talked to them today. Seemed like, again, my research, they seem to be very legit. The two gentlemen actually grew up in Darby Borough and have done real estate development and public-private partnerships throughout the country. So they have a good track record and seem to be successful. And again, once their information is emailed, their literature, I will most certainly circulate that amongst the elected body and the solicitor. But I did, Mr. Gibbs, give him your contact information because there were some things that, I felt I needed an attorney for, and I could provide, them with certain documents that they had asked of me as it relates to the appraisal and all that good stuff. So they should be reaching out to you. Tomorrow, I don't want to take Miranda shine. The management will be hosting with the employees a holiday luncheon. We'll have some good Chick-fil-A grab-and-go packs ready to go for the employees with some nice gift cards and things of that nature to kind of celebrate the holiday spirit, the holiday season. Yeah, I can probably go on and on, but I'll stop there. Any questions?
Great. Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, Mr. Nichols. I actually have a question. This is Liana Roadcloud here. How are you?
Finding yourself?
Pretty good. So I was listening to you with respect to the business privilege tax, and you indicated that we would not be able to institute same because I guess we kind of missed that deadline since 1999.
89. Yes, there was state legislation that changed the tax code as it relates to business privilege tax and some other taxes that municipalities can impose. And people who had it prior to then, of course, were grandfathered in, and new municipalities, well, not new municipalities, but municipalities that did not have it, they unfortunately aren't able to do so.
Unless they sought the
legislator.
Okay, and which legislators would that be?
I mean, it would have to pass, you know. I see Mr. Gibbs have muted himself, so I'm probably getting to.
Good evening, Counselor. How are you, ma'am?
I'm well, on yourself.
They would have to revoke the current state statute that prohibits us from doing a business privilege tax. Currently, no, they couldn't give permission to one municipality. So it would have to be the people in Harrisburg who say that we're allowed to enact that tax.
Okay. Okay, but it is doable if we go through the proper channels, correct?
It's doable if the state does it for everyone in the state.
Okay.
But not, you can't do it just for one borough.
Right. Okay, it would have to be a collective. Okay.
And the Borough Association has tried for years and they failed.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Also, as it relates to the Civil Service Commission, we discussed at the last meeting. Miranda was kind enough to pull the term for me. Dr. McKay was appointed on 3/15/18. Aaron Gravely was appointed on 3/15/18. Nicole Beatty was appointed on 1/17/19. According to the state law, their terms are for a period of 6 years. So currently there are no vacancies. Mr. Gravely has missed 3 meetings, but there's no provision to remove him except for misconduct at this time. So I did take a look at that.
I appreciate that. This is again. However, if you have to have a minimum of 3 members present in order to move things along, how is that going to work out for us if one member is missing?
So it doesn't just, the law doesn't require 3 members. It requires the majority of the board to meet to do something. It states that, one second, no action of the commission may be valid unless it shall have the concurrence of at least 2 members. That's 1174 section D of the Borough Code.
So everything that the police department would need, they can be rest assured that 2 members are sufficient to make sure things can get done.
Yes, there's nothing they need right now. So they only meet when they need a list. So there is a police officers list is outstanding. There's also a lieutenant's list and a sergeant's list. They only meet when it's time to hire or fire and discipline someone. But the reality is that once the list is established, it then goes to the council of Yeadon Borough to determine when and who shall be hired, because you all are the appropriators and the hirers of employees. So the commission only meets when it's time to establish a list. They did that last year, and they established 3 lists for supervisors and for officers. So I believe the chief may have a vacancy coming up. When he does, he'll present it to the council. The council will go to the next person in their list. Unless he has a reason to skip that person, then he would have to go to the Civil Service Commission.
Are Mr. Gravely's interests to stay on, or?
I haven't been in touch with him, sir.
So is it out of protocol to reach out and say, hey, you know, if you're interested, you know, kind of come on back into the fold. If not, you know, would you mind submitting a letter of resignation? Like, can that be communicated, or is that out of protocol?
Someone could do that. But I will tell you, it's not abnormal for people to miss meetings. I know that when there was time to have the last 2 meetings, I did reach out to him, but I did not hear back. But the Civil Service Commission's role is very limited to establishing a list, conducting the exams, and submitting to the borough to a list of qualified applicants. We currently have those for the next 1.5 years. But if someone wanted to reach out to Mr. Gravely and find out what his interests were, they could do that. But right now, Dr. McCabe and Mr. Gravely had the same term, and Ms. Beatty was appointed a little less than a year later. Councilor Cape, did I answer your question or no?
So can we clarify about like how many people are on this list so we can just
On the Civil Service Commission?
no, on the list that was established by the Civil Service Commission.
Chief, do you know how many on the list for each position?
Yep, there's 1 for lieutenant. There are 3 for sergeant, and there are about 24 still on the patrolman's list.
And Chief, do you regularly kind of check in on the list to see if, you know, people may have been hired elsewhere or, you know?
I do. I do. I try to keep tabs on who has been hired, so that in the event that we provide a conditional letter of, before we provide a conditional offer of employment, we reach out to the person to confirm that they've either been employed somewhere else or they're no longer interested. And then we ask them to supply us with a letter showing that they're either working somewhere else and they're going to be removed from the consideration.
And Madam President, you should know that the chief and I do have regular conversations about the list, making sure we're abiding by the Civil Service Code and the Commissioner's regulations.
That is correct.
We'll probably talk more about that than anything else.
Great.
But the commission will only meet when it's time to establish a list.
Well, since we don't necessarily know when the time is to establish a list, I would think we would make sure that the board is fully staffed, so to speak. I mean, on the website it said it had to be at least 3 members, although, I mean, technically you're saying there are 3 members, but one of the members haven't showed up for about 3 meetings now. So whether or not someone should reach out to the individual to see what their interests are, I mean, I would think at this point in time that would be feasible.
But Mr. Gibbs, did you did reach out to him and he didn't respond?
That's correct, ma'am.
Okay, so we'll continue to reach out because we are interested in keeping it fully staffed. So we'll continue to reach out.
And the other thing too, I believe that's all the meetings, right? That were available to him. So that's another.
Yes, ma'am. You're right.
Yeah, a monkey wrench. It's not just missing meetings, but when you just join the committee and you haven't attended a meeting that's been 2 or more, that is a little disconcerting. And if he hasn't responded to you, that is a little disconcerting.
The issue I run into is that we just can't remove him.
But we could write him a letter and see what his intent. Because right now, does he really want to be on the commission?
Yeah, if I'm directed to write him a letter, I will do that.
Well, who else would be able to write a letter? Would that be under borough management? Who else? Would it be the mayor?
It probably would be me. I would need council to tell me to do it.